I'm now going to kind of deliver something where I hope some of the things that I say are going to leap out at you. And I'm going to pick up where Caryn ended, which is celebrating design and the individual, and tell you a little bit about our campaign. We call it Mix It Up, the power and influence of fashion. You are, after all, an individual. And we are, All Walks Beyond the Catwalk is an organisation which promotes individuality. We feel very strongly that fashion acts as a carrier for an enormous amount of messaging other than just cut, silhouette, texture, trend, and any other extras we can think about around design. It also promotes concepts around personal identity. And so wherever we are, we like to do a pop-up studio and pick up on the individuals that make fashion for us truly significant. And so that was when we were at Graduate Fashion Week. And we are, for us, the messaging that is really crucial within our industry's conversation to consumers is our uniqueness, our diversity, the way we all self-style, the way we put things together, the way we receive fashion into our lives on our terms. And I think that's really important. So All Walks began in 2009 because we really felt that diversity and individuality was important, was something that perhaps fashion was in pursuing the new at all points, and in engaging with the technology that often helps deliver the new, that we were forgetting some of the really basic things, which is we all come to fashion and we look for its support to embolden us, to support us in our daily lives. Every single one of us needs clothes. And so we can't ignore fashion. We engage with it, for some of us frequently, and for others less so. But fashion creates a narrative which impacts upon our self-esteem. So when we began, we had a really basic remit for ourselves, which was to engage with people and bring in a kind of an empathy with what consumers need to feel, what we all need to feel. And I have sort of put this in because you're all starting out as individuals. And I started out as, back then, myself, at the beginning, at feeling that I was an individual and I would bring fashion in on my terms. And I felt really comfortable that it would be my journey and that I could hear my voice. And I want to just remind all of us right now that you have a voice. And that's something I think that successive creatives have encouraged you to feel, that not only do you have a voice, but you have enormous power to use that voice as an individual and as a collective, as a future generation of very powerful creatives. But I thought I might just make a little connection with you, because I've been in the fashion industry now for 33 years. Back then, I was just as excited about dressing up as you were, and I began my career at ID, and I didn't know the word brand. It hadn't been invented, or the word lifestyle. And we didn't have high streets full of designer copies. We mostly made our own clothes. I mean, it sounds like the Dark Ages, but the high street hadn't been invented. We mostly did our own styling, and we picked up what we could of designers where we could, whether it would be sort of hand-me-downs or sales or second-hand, or so that's me very proudly in my westward bondage strides which I still have and I still wear from time to time. But ID was an amazing experience for me because I was dealing with the individual, and it was a very politicized space to operate from, and it's shaped the way that I have continued my practice. What then shaped me was moving to work for a very mainstream corporate like the BBC for the following 12 years, where I went from a tiny global, very niche market audience to a huge mainstream platform where we had 13 million viewers every single week for 12 years. And we reached up to 157 million homes globally, courtesy of the BBC World Service. And that was an incredible education for me, because what I realised was that everybody was excited with fashion and wanted to engage with fashion, but not everybody felt confident enough to do it on their own terms. They really were looking for pointers from the fashion industry about the right way to appear. And so the fashion industry, to a certain extent, is a self-appointed authority on the right way to be. It has an enormous amount of influence, and with that, responsibility when we begin to think of the self-esteem of all our consumers. And that, going forward, is something that I want to revisit. But I want to remind you, and it's certainly been touched on, of the environment that I landed in, which was where fashion was very much for the individual, and it was brought into their lives on their terms. So Body Map we're a design duo who some of you may have engaged with in the Club to Catwalk exhibition. And I saw on the catwalks, I saw models who were diverse and who were individual. Stevie and David, who are at the right of the picture there, asked their mums to model. There's a mum and an auntie in that picture there. There's their friends. There's some up-and-coming models, and they would often have Clubland friends as well. So Helen Terry was a popular singer in the day. She was also very curvaceous, and she was up on an international stage with buyers from Bloomingdale's and Macy's and fashion editors from American Vogue in the front row. And for me, that was how fashion was rightly communicated, because we are all individuals, we are all diverse, and we all look to fashion for an invitation to engage. When I began working, certainly with the BBC, and we were covering international fashion weeks, I still found very much that I could enjoy sitting at a fashion show and seeing a variety of models who had some charisma, had some individuality about them. But when I noticed that things were changing, I began to question why that is. And we've talked again about the faster, mass market approach. And I want to kind of really link that with the individual being overshadowed and in service to the brand, instead of the artisanal producer or the small service provider recognizing what their consumer needs, because they engage with them, because their feedback informs the way that they then kind of work on their offer, their product. It seems now that we don't matter to brands. In fact, our self-esteem is not something that the fashion industry seems to consider at all. Certainly not when we look at the way that we are represented visually. And when we look at whether the power of the brand has increased, we can't help but map the development of technology offering these huge digital platforms for a global broadcast, which reaches more and more people on their laptops, their mobiles, their personal screens, with the fashion narrative. And just looking here, of course, there are photographers at the end of every catwalk show relaying their photographs. Again, when I started, it would be rolled up, a little roll of 36 exposures, put in a pocket and handed to a fashion editor, who about 3 months after the show would then get those pictures out and look at whether they had any relevance to their readers. There were some high-end magazines that would be showcasing catwalk fashion, but a lot of mainstream magazines didn't. The difference now is that every single person in the audience records the imagery and promotes it on their own personal platforms. So we are all helping to broadcast fashion's message around personality, around character, around physicality, around who we are. And to a certain extent, we are engaging unthinkingly with a formula that undermines us as individuals and potentially undermines our consumers. So let's start from a point of view of you were all consumers way before you got into fashion practice as you are now. And your self-esteem will have been shaped by what you have seen in your fashion media growing up. And it's worth us asking, what is the brand saying to us? Why do we pledge brand allegiance with certain brands? Are we easily pleased? Are we discerning? Are we choosing to have an opinion and placing our money with people who we feel deliver something that emboldens us, that supports us in our daily life? The brand often says the same thing to us over and over again. And that is, the cuts will change, the designs will change, the technology will change, but our requirement for the body that we think looks best in it never changes. Our projection of the right way to be rarely changes, because we show you this repeatedly from our catwalks and our fashion editorials. She or he is always young, always thin, always Caucasian, and always tall. And we have a kind of default setting that quite often we're not engaged with as a choice or as an opinion. And that may be something we've kind of gone through the day thinking about ways in which we have the power to influence the world of fashion and our own personal perspective, our own personal practice. That may be something that you would like to have an opinion about. Does fashion promote conformity in appearance, gender and behaviour? There are certainly two reading kind of examples that I'd like to encourage. Susie Orbach flags up as an eminent psychoanalyst that when we are shown something over and over again, we normalise it within our lives, and we stop being in conflict with it to a certain extent, quite simply because that's too uncomfortable for the brain to be repeatedly going, I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with this, I've got to somehow feel comfortable about this. The brain actually goes, we're going to turn down the volume on this because it's just easier to accept it. And that is how brainwashing works. And what I would like to say from this point onwards is listening to your own voice and being in touch with your own opinions is the most creative resource you have. Accessing what you feel about something from here is what will inform your practice and what will help nourish your passion, whatever that may be. If you're busy turning it down because you're in conflict with someone, you're not having access to your own unique viewpoint, your own unique energy. Another psychoanalyst here, very interesting again, we could look at a lot of the deconstruction that happens when people look at fashion, which is taking place in the psychosocial area, in the self-esteem, mental health worlds, and ask why people feel the need to do this. It's possible that many of us already know the answer, but the fact of the matter is fashion has so much power to carry messages other than those about the clothes. And we are hugely powerful as cultural commentators because of our ability to broadcast ideas. And so worth reading The Private Life by Josh Cohen for the last chapter alone, which he titles The Disgrace of Being Human, and it's just about the fashion industry. And bodies do talk, even when there is very little information about clothes in something like fashion editorial, and we are told that we're being sold a dream, we're being sold something bigger than just the clothes. We are also getting lots of messaging around our personal identity. So I want you to look at these images now and listen to your own voice. And I'm just going to play them through quite quickly and see where they land for you. So this is the point where you are fully connected with your opinion and your voice. And that's something that I will be asking you to fill in briefly for me in the feedback forms that I will take. Because for the most part, All Walks Beyond the Catwalk is a kind of unwaged, unfunded, voluntary organisation by the fashion industry who want to engage the next generation of future creatives, which we recognise as the most powerful creatives on the planet, to be able to change things. You are the change. So being able to get your opinions at this stage is very, very helpful for us. Sometimes I change lectures based on what people flag up in their feedback forms. So I want to tell you what my voice says, just very briefly here, which is, okay, I can't see any clothes, just looks like a little bit of cheap nightwear that these women are wearing, so I'm kind of nonplussed. But now I get it from this brand, because again, these women look like they're wearing cheap sort of bodycon dresses. That woman in the black isn't even wearing something even slightly flattering. But the brand is really reminding me about my place in its world, because I am the hopeless junkie waiting for my next clothing fix. And I don't care how much they disrespect me or how degraded I feel I am as part of this process. I will keep on doing it. I will keep on asking for more. So I don't fancy ever giving that brand any money again. Here we are with the pre-orgasmic woman who's happy in her dress, so she drops down to her knees for a bit of fanny massaging. Because that's what a woman does when she's feeling good about herself, is it? Another one, it's a popular theme with photographers. Got the it bag, sit down wherever you are, have an orgasm. And one for you guys, all your favourite weapons, killing toys, because you like plotting a bit of skullduggery. And of course you need a damsel in distress. You need to see women vulnerable and naked because you're so insecure that you don't feel comfortable being in the same room with strong women. And my God, she does need protecting. Thank God you're there, because if you let go of her, she's going to drop to the floor in a human puddle because she doesn't have enough muscle tone to support herself. So post-produced out of her body. Another one for you guys, again, great that we've got women under control here, so you feel great. There's a whole group of you there looking on, while we've got a bit of stylish rape culture to feast our eyes on. 3 guys standing around. Could they help? Not really. Don't want to mess up the hair. And again, more rape culture for you guys. Clearly something that fashion industry types think you respond well to. This time, maybe stating it a little bit more forcefully. So model held down with a hand in her hair to pull her tight to the lap. Her trousers have been taken off. His trousers have been pulled down. He is ready to do whatever the fashion equivalent of rape is after this shot. Guy in the front still holding it all together, looking cool. And simple bit of voyeurism, really. That's a general kind of female passive, male proactive, just an everyday narrative in fashion. Plenty more of this now creeping in. Women anguished, women in pain, women feeling threatened. Again, let's just go back to the fashion information, a dirty child's vest. What are we to, how are we to aspire to this picture if we are women? But guys, how do you engage with this picture? This model looks like she has been beaten and tortured to me. And here she is with not very long to live. Just wearing a dirty pair of trainers, all roped up and ready to be kicked off into a murky, dirty canal. Just an everyday fashion image. Strong women. Nice to see some. Female literary figures, if only we did. Female literary figures here from Vice magazine, but of course we can't have women being too successful or too strong, so they've got to be really discontented and ready to top themselves. And dead models, that's quite a theme coming through. Some of the models on one of the Next Top Model shows were being encouraged to give good dead. Apparently it's the latest trend from fashion world. And of course, guys, another one from you. If you buy this fragrance, you will get some shaved fanny. Or you get to fantasize about having sex with a little girl. American Apparel. I think this is aimed at women. I think you are... I can't fathom this one out. I give up. I think you're meant want to... I don't know. Does anybody... I don't know how many times I've done this lecture, and every time something different comes out of my mouth, because I just never know what to say about this shop. Anybody shop in American Apparel? Why would you line the pockets of a CEO who wants to portray you in that way as permanently up for it, legs wide open, park your bike in here? I don't know. But interesting, isn't it, that there's a whole load more narrative other than just clothes. The climax shot. It is a clothing campaign. It's a fashion narrative. The pornification of fashion is well and truly with us. Could it be because so many creatives now spending a lot of time watching porn that their brains have been completely addled by so much fanny, ejaculation, whatever else is on there, and lo and behold, it's made its way into fashion. This may be something that you think has leverage with your generation. I would love to hear about that on your feedback forms, because I could learn something. But so when we look at bodies talking, and my remit being diversity, being a broader range of bodies to inspire us, could we also maybe think about a broader range of opinions to inspire us? Creatives casting the net wider when it comes to emboldening us as consumers, inspiring us, making us feel great. Oh, by the way, enhancing self-esteem, wouldn't that be great? So could fashion messaging think about less objectification, emotionally considerate practice, and a broader range of body and beauty ideals? Because these consumers who aren't creatives, actually they're all walks interns, but there are many people who love fashion that look to you to have an opinion on their behalf about modern, a contemporary way to be. Could fashion be thinking about where our messaging, where our promotion lands for the consumer? And if we don't want to think about it for our contemporaries, could we think about it for the next generation? Your brothers and sisters, your relatives, those who they don't have money to spend on your product yet, but they are being groomed by the fashion industry to think of themselves in terms of compliant, hypersexualized, unopinionated, willing, undermined, disrespected, ready to buy clothes from your good selves. These are just everyday pictures of some Girl Guides. The 9-year-old there is wearing Gareth Pugh wedges. She does know all about him, and she does read a variety of fashion magazines avidly. She's looking to you for pointers on how to live her life creatively, aesthetically. So maybe we can consider accountability and conscious practice and less objectification, or investigate the narrow ideals in size, age, skin tone and physical ability. It is on the agenda. I was at a debate last night at the London College of Fashion around racism. This was something that Naomi sort of brought up a few seasons ago, but even last week this feature came out in the Sunday Times. We do promote institutionalized racism as an industry. Black models are told, we've got a black model, we don't need you. You're not black enough, you're too black for what I'm thinking about. The visibility of black models or models of colour or the diverse ethnicity, given that we are a multicultural society, that we have a diverse global economy and consumer, is very low. Are we thinking about that as creatives? When we worked with William Tempest to flag this up, he said it was never something I thought I could or should prioritise. It just didn't come into my creative decision-making process. So for that particular show, he cast 50-50, but unless he's having a conversation with his casting director every single time and requiring that they prioritise some diversity, it won't continue. Age diversity is important too. Women who are middle-aged and older have 4 times as much money to spend on the average garment. So if you're making a business proposition which might involve some kind of artisanal or customer engagement where you're not necessarily mass producing. You might create product yourself where you want to engage with the market. It's an important thing to remember. And I put Vivienne Westwood in there. She's already been mentioned, quite right and all, simply because she has been someone who's inspired me for 33 years. But here she is, someone who's appearing in an advertising campaign, her own, which is a global advertising campaign with no post-production on her face and body. And that's a rarity. You will not see a middle-aged woman, let alone a 67-year-old woman, who looks her age, because your generation is growing up with so much post-production that you are being sold an idea of what aging looks like, which quite conveniently makes you very, very compliant consumers for the beauty market. Not something I grew up with. I am very happy getting older. I'm good enough as I am. But something that you're growing up with, already being encouraged to think about the 7 signs of aging at 20-something. You might have an opinion about that. I just put this one in. I just wanted to. I just like the fact that here is a position that is about being an individual. It might not be your cup of tea. Who cares? It's just different from the formulaic fashion thinking that we are increasingly engaging with. Hypersexualization is something that we are increasingly engaging with. You've got an opinion about that. Kate Moss actually had to wait 20 years before she felt safe to have an opinion about it. Who was looking after her back then when she was that teenage model? Who on the creative team was recognising that she was a young woman in distress, didn't want to be semi-naked, straddling a male model, also semi-naked? What are those creative teams doing when they're collaborating creatively? Not necessarily thinking about the self-esteem of their consumers or indeed even their central characters, and that might be something going forward that we can do. Important, I think, also to flag up that it's not just women. Women are on the front line. Yes, they are. But men, increasingly, yours is a market that where there's still plenty of room for, we haven't reached saturation point yet. You haven't been encouraged to feel as bad as women have about their bodies yet. But there's time. There's time and there's money to be made out of you. But very important to flag up that men also are being sold one ideal. Caucasian, tall, thin, hairless, quite often. And interesting, I think, to just make some alignments here. Fashion likes to think of itself as a visionary thinker at the vanguard of contemporary thought. And yet fashion here, as it often does, is delving into ancient thinking around personal identity and appearance. It was in medieval times that the Christian church felt it was really important to underline the kind of maverick power and disobedience of hair. Women of any faith are encouraged to cover their hair, some to shave it off. Women are encouraged to cover their heads when they engage with religious buildings. When women objected to the Christian church's use of sugar and importing it over to to England, they were kind of thrown out as being in league with the devil. And in order to really discredit everything that they said, most of which was just based on health, the church needed to demonize them. And so hair became a way in which a disobedient woman could be spotted. And so any men who were perhaps thought to be in league with these said witches were encouraged to confess all, and then they were allowed to shave off their chest hair, make a clean breast of it, and escape while the women got a bit of a roasting at the stake. But interesting, isn't it, that Christianity is influencing contemporary thinking around our personal identity and image making. So we are creatives and we can come up with solutions. It's what All Walks did when we thought that we would just simply work with a broader range of models. Hayley Morley wearing Mark Fast is a UK 14 and Lucy Freeman wearing Alexandra Groover is a UK 16. That's all. Nothing radical. When we proposed it, the British Fashion Council said it's just going to look a mess, it's not going to look aspirational. People can't read fashion on a range of bodies. And we said, well, we're going to try anyway, because we happen to think that we need to make a more direct proposition to the consumer and engage with them as individuals. And so skin tone was something that we wanted to create a narrative around. You know, the mixed race model is often given much more prominence than the darker skinned model who has obvious African heritage. So someone like Tatiana here on the left would be given the beauty campaign. Sheila on the right would not be given the beauty campaign. Veronica Webb, the first black model to make a fortune out of Revlon in the late 80s, I think, had conformed to a very European aesthetic. Naomi Campbell was given the moniker of supermodel along with all the others, but she didn't get given a big cosmetic campaign in the same way. So promoting broader beauty spectrums, recognising that there are all types of beauty, could be one of the things that we choose to do. We actually brought in Laura Catterell, who was the Special K model at the time, and she said, I would never be asked to come to London Fashion Week and wear sample designer clothing to promote it. And we said, why not? We wanted to make a show in which we could create a debate to say all bodies are beautiful. I'm not being dualistic here in my thinking and saying we're against young, thin, white women. They are very beautiful, and that is one type of beauty ideal. We want a much broader beauty ideal because all bodies deserve great design, and as an industry we surely are up to designing for everybody by understanding what they need. When we named this debate, we were unprepared for the amount of press that we would receive, and so we thought we would carry on and see where we could take it, working with higher end designers. So we asked people like here, Alice Templey, Matthew Williamson, Stella McCartney, Antonio Berardi, to again work with us, to allow us to showcase their samples, not just any old clothes, their samples at London Fashion Week at exactly the same time as the shows. And interestingly, if we look look at Valerie here, no post-production done in this shot. Were she to be in perhaps a brand image or a magazine image, she would have had breasts lifted, waist sculpted, there's a little round on her tummy which you can't see here, but that would have been flattened. All of the skin around her arms, her elbows, her hands and under her neck would have been completely changed. And I just asked the question, why? I happen to think she's very beautiful. I happen to think we need to see beauty aging beautifully, because otherwise we are all doing each other a disservice. You, again, are in a position of seeing far less images of older women than I saw. And guys, again, a much more comfortable space for you currently, but that could change once they realise they need to move into the area of masculinity and kind of dismantle it in the same way. And when I say they, I'm talking about creative teams who have a set agenda but maybe don't have any kind of opinion around our need to be accountable where self-esteem is concerned. We took these images to the National Portrait Gallery because we really wanted to show, and these two models here are plus size, what a strange word. And my Liverpool students gave me a better word, life size. But they would never be allowed near a sample garment during London Fashion Week or during most graduate college shows, because nobody designs for a size 14. They only design for a UK size 10. So worth us asking, and interestingly, when I've done lots of silent partner consulting work with companies who call themselves plus size companies, they inherit designers who have never worked in an empathic way on a body that is any larger than a UK size 10. So are we really experiencing our own creativity at its fullness? Could we be being more empathic with the body as a starting point? The National Portrait Gallery couldn't believe 4,000 people came to see photographs that hadn't been post-produced. Neither could we really, but we did have a bit of a party, which was lovely. But let's just come back to aesthetics, because we always return to this space because, well, that's the right place to start, isn't it? Because that's the fashion formula, isn't it? Does it start at drawing stage? The very tall, thin, elongated body. That's the right place to start, isn't it? Could we think about a different way of doing things? Does it have to be formulaic? We are creatives, we are diverse, we are individuals. Do we have to feed into a formula? Current standards in illustration, and I was thinking how influential illustrators could be, because they really are envisaging something that doesn't then need any transference to an immovable bust stand that can't give them any feedback, or a professional model that's paid not to give them any feedback. They could draw whatever they want. There's clearly still a formula in fashion illustration. I was looking for a range of illustrations. I couldn't find any. I sort of finally found this on the net somewhere, but I couldn't find any when I typed in diverse fashion illustrations of black women, fashion illustrations of women of colour, fashion illustrations of older women, I couldn't find anything. I asked Nuno da Costa to do me 2 illustrations. He thinks he's finished, but he hasn't. He's got a lot more work to do, because I want to get a collection of about 10, just because we can see a range of individuals and we can be inspired by it. Why don't we see life-size fashion illustration as we do on the left there, or older women looking funky and punky? Why do we work to formula? Because consumers are diverse. They want to feel good. You want to feel good. I want to feel good. You often in your feedback tell me, oh, thank God someone's talking about this. I'm so glad you're doing something about it. Actually, you are going to do something about it if you want to, if that's what you want to engage with, because it's your practice. But it's worth us reminding ourselves, which is why we called ourselves All Walks Beyond the Catwalk. The catwalk is not the end user. The professional model is not the end user. Your consumer looks like this, like this, like this, like this, and increasingly like this. Empathic connections with consumers could begin something for you which allows you to feel conscious. And I can't tell you where that's going to lead. It's your practice. And you don't have to think like me at all, but you do have to think, and you do have to have an opinion, because just feeding into standard fashion formula is a waste of your individual creativity and your power to be influential. But when we became vocally conscious, we were invited into Parliament to talk about a huge variety of things, because parliamentarians, mental health experts, educators are all very interested in fashion. We learned from Government Minister Jo Swinson that actually all of those beauty ads take only a few complaints to bring them down. And this is where, again, your voice when you engage with a beauty ad, your voice is silent. But if you turned it up, it would be saying to you, how can a simple lotion make my skin look like that? Why doesn't that woman have a single blemish, a single mark or change of colour in her face? It's because it's been so post-produced. So why am I taking any notice of a beauty ad that is telling me to buy a product when it has falsified an image? But you've turned your voice down. But if you actually did say that and then rung up the ASA and said, why are we having false images to promote this beauty advertising, they'd go, we'll get onto it. Let's get the digital trail from the company and ask them to tell us why they've made the changes that they've made. And invariably, the company can't, and the ad comes down. But the beauty companies rely on us being compliant and comfortable with existing formulas. Other existing formulas which we could question, certainly the questions that came from developing worlds when Lynn Featherstone created a UN summit to discuss body image, were really quite important. That the developing countries meeting industrialized countries had a question that they could not answer, which was, we recognize that our young women aren't able to engage with education. Quite often they're prevented from it, or it's not available to them. So therefore, for them, in order to be able to eat, they have to make a good marriage. And in order to make a good marriage, they are sometimes forced into body modification. It could be the forced feeding that takes place in some places. It could be the female genital mutilation. Those body modifications are delivered to women because they believe they have no choice. But could you tell us, because we look to you, industrialized countries, why your young women who have access to education and access to careers and are able to pay for their own food and don't need to make a marriage, why they are voluntarily operating on themselves and paying for it? Because we look at your world as offering a model of the way forward, and we don't understand why cosmetic surgery survives as an industry, or is indeed growing, and it is growing, with racial deletion being one of the most asked for procedures. So government are looking at whether there should be some kind of kite marking in our fashion imagery to alert people to the falsifications. And of course we love drama, we love theatre, we love all of those things, but as creatives we can make that without the amount of post-production. Because we do become conditioned, and if this woman looks strange to you, that maybe is an indication of where your horizons have taken you, because this is an average-sized body. And it may not be the body you choose to design for, but she's out there as a consumer, and she deserves and has the money for great clothing too. The diversity network that we have set up at Edinburgh College of Art is linking with other colleges to develop ways forward to help our creatives empathise with the end user. And that's not just about design, that's about photography, writing, styling, all of those creative skills that you have which make a message and promotes ideas other than just clothing. Working with all bodies is a great place to start, truly understanding what a body needs, which you can't get from an immovable bust stand or a professional model who's paid to remain silent. Interacting with the person who is wearing your clothes as part of your training could be helpful. We've made lots of different college networks where we lecture, and we hope to engage students like yourselves with the idea that as individuals you are incredibly powerful. We've been changing curriculums just in order to be able to bring a space in for people to experiment with their own individuality. We've created the Body Confidence Awards, in which we totally agree that good practice must be named and rewarded. Dr. Ben Barry from the Judge Business School of Cambridge University has provided some excellent research which helps businesses understand that when women see a variety of role models and can make a relationship with someone who is more like them, they are able to increase their purchase intentions by up to 300%. Since we've been going, Vogue have also acknowledged the power of realistically proportioned bodies and asked designers to think about the consequences of small sample sizes. The average 5'11" model is expected to have a 33 hip measurement in order to make a runway collection. Lots of MPs from cross-party or party parliamentary group are interested in what you are doing and the fashion industry and its power. So maybe it's important for us to, at this point, just ask a simple business question. Do consumers want diversity, and can we deliver it? So guess who sponsored our first campaign? They gave us a very, very small working budget, and we gave them a multi-million pound idea for free. That's fine by us. We like to see a bit of change. I caught up with them to get their observations on it, and they said that they had phenomenal feedback. Interestingly, with Katie Piper, Tracy Emin and Helen Mirren being the most popular individuals for the clothes. So the clothes that they were wearing received the most comments, sold out the fastest. So not necessarily the most model-like looking women. When I did the Debenhams Diversity Lookbook, again, we said to the company, can we have more models in the book rather than just the usual two, interchangeable? And can we use it as a bit of an experiment to showcase a range of bodies so that we can see where it will land for your consumer? So again, they reported amazing feedback with sort of lots more likes than normal, with dresses out, selling out immediately, and press for a simple trade lookbook. It's a trade lookbook that cost, in comparison to the M&S one, a few K. So something that they felt had worked really well. And what we do is work with colleges to say, give us your version of diversity, because actually you are the future. It is you who will take forward all your ideas into industry. And if we use the sourcing sustainability and trade sustainability, working with manufacture in a way that is ethical, it is your generation that has taken that forward into industry. And we ask our own students, would seeing more diverse body and beauty ideals impact positively on your self-esteem? That answer at the end. But some amazing responses which we loved seeing from colleges who engaged with us, who actually went, yes, I think I might make a fashion practice that is more encouraging to a broader range of consumers, because I want to invite them in to come and engage with me and sample my design. And I know that I can flatter all bodies and all shapes by empathizing a little bit more with the end user. Here's an example of your power. Both these models, the lady on the left was so glad to engage with a jewellery designer who made her a funky cover for her hearing aid. And she said, now people don't see a deaf woman straight away. They see somebody who's interested in fashion. And our student on the right was blinded at 18. But when he has help putting his clothes together, he knows and can feel the difference at the way people respond to him, because they're engaging with a kind of contemporary image that clothing can give. That's how powerful you are. That's what amazing things you can do. You can question stereotypes around gender, and my God, they need questioning. You can engage with the body, design for a variety of bodies, promote a range of skin tones. You know, much of the fashion industry is populated by Caucasians who haven't thought about race. They've never really had to. Now is the time to think about race and think about casting a broader range of aspirational individuals than the one you see in the mirror, because we are in a global marketplace. We are in a kind of diverse culture. So good design needs to be available to all with a recognition that consumers are diverse. And since we've been working with Edinburgh College of Art and really bringing in the importance of empathising with the body, their students have done a full 3 years with the diversity module. And last year they took 2 out of the 3 top prizes in the clothing design at Graduate Fashion Week. So there can be connections with benefits to engaging with the body. So that question that we asked last year's Diversity Now competition winners, 8% said no, very happy as I am. A full 92% said yes, I could feel a lot better about myself if I saw a broader range of bodies and beauty ideals in my fashion media. So the power that you have is enormous. It's official then, fashion can make you feel great. That's just how wonderful you are. And we know the answer to this. Does diversity have business currency? Your contribution then could be to our next competition, Diversity Now in 2014. We chose this winner, here she is on our poster, because she was engaging with the limited representations of black masculinity, which is often portrayed as hyper-violent in a white culture and in a music culture. And she really wanted to create a space in which black masculinity could be viewed in a different way, as a kind of softer, more vulnerable energy, because we, again, as fashion practitioners, have the power to do that with the narratives that we create around clothes. And that, for us, seeing some of the thinking of the students that entered the course was wonderful. So if you feel like doing that, the closing date is April the 21st, and you can come onto the All Walks site and download your brief. And if you do send us something in, then I'm asking that you go via your tutor so that we can have the top 5 representations from the college. And of course, tutors, if you feel that some of them are so amazing they just have to come in too, then you can send those in as well. So I'm ending really with a reminder, that was just another pop-up that we did there, that actually your opinion counts, and you don't have to think like me, you just have to have an opinion going forward, because you are the change. Thank you very much. We do have a bit of time for questions, but I don't know if you've absolutely had it and you don't want to ask any. Yes.
Representation actually is how the Photoshop fashion images affect consumers' self-confidence. And I was thinking that as we're thinking of ways in the future, it's very common. I was thinking fashion companies that feel they need to do this with these warning labels to say that as models have had inches skimmed off them and this new touch. Do you think that's a good idea? Or do you think
What I'm going to do is repeat your question so that everybody can hear that. So we're really looking at the culture of photoshopping and the amount of changes that are made to ordinary bodies to deliver this kind of idealised and very unachievable image for us all, and whether engaging with companies to question why they do that. is a good first start. As individuals, we can engage with companies. This has been flagged up before. You know, the power of the purse is massive. If everybody, and let's just look at beauty companies. Brits especially were very involved in no animal testing. And all beauty companies now have disclaimers around not tested on animals. So when we decide that something is just too distasteful, we can change it. But being able to start dialogue and being able to, blogging has been flagged up, social networking as a power that your generation has. The ability to have an opinion and put it out there if it's crafted well enough, and to promote that and for people to pass it on. Make no mistake, you know, when you include that brand in your tweet, when you include them as a link on your Facebook, if there is enough response, they're looking at it. You know, they're looking all the time at trending narratives. So your generation might just say, you know, all this technology and all this lightening of skins, you know, reduction of any kind of natural character in a face, all the changing that is going on, doesn't serve us psychologically, undermines us, and we don't want it. Certainly in advertising surveys, that's what's coming through. There is an advertising ethical body, name escapes me, but they have done a big study asking young women especially what level of post-production they're happy with, and most of them said very little. So actually getting brands to engage with that is the next step. And if we all agreed not to engage with brands that were doing something that was distasteful, we would be able to see our own power in that. There isn't a short answer, unfortunately.
What would you, because I'm trying to get from Twitter companies that are using Photoshop in their images, I'm not sure the best way to go about that because I'm obviously offending them. What do you think?
Oh, who gives a stuff? Just a really, like just a straight to the point, honest, polite letter, and keep on going, keep on going. Quite often, you know, when you're tenacious, they have to put more effort into blocking you than they do to just answering your questions so you'll go away. So just keep at it, keep at it. You will always find people. And make sure that the person you want to speak to, you put their name on the letter. Because the dear sirs are easy to kind of go, oh, it's not for me, it's for that person over there. So ring up the company, find out when that, you know, if I can't speak to time to speak to them, get them on Twitter. You might be able to get them on LinkedIn. I mean, I use Twitter all the time to link to people that I really need to have a conversation with. I think it's a brilliant tool. But tenacity is actually the most important quality for getting to the bottom of things. And you might find it surprisingly easy. Yes?
As someone who's a blogger, do you have programs or anything that's linked back to yourself, or this point of view that supports bloggers that have an individual voice?
We take blogs on spec, so if someone writes something in, you know, All Walks Beyond the Catwalk has a blog, so we, you know, if it's a good piece of writing and it's a good idea in under 300 words with a nice image that you've got cleared the rights for, then we're really happy to promote it. So just send in info@allwalks.org.
Thank you.
Yes?
I'm quite completely agreement with everything that you're saying. Do you think sometimes that people push diversity like they call it just for the media attention rather than because it's actually right to do it?
Of course, fashion loves a gimmick, fashion loves a novelty. So we're always going to find that some people might go, oh, this season it's all about diversity. And then next season they're back onto the default setting. I mean, that's to a certain extent something that if there are any writers in this room, you know, the fashion speak and the way the quality of fashion writing is quite often very vacuous. that space in which this season it's all ladylike, or this season it's all grown up. Like, was it last season? Was it for toddlers then? The fashion languaging around that is really important to deconstruct all of that. So yeah, people are always going to jump on something because it has novelty value. And it's not for everybody. It doesn't suit everybody's proposition. But I suppose the key space here is there are people in the industry saying to you that the existing formula, which is actually driven by CEOs ahead great big multi-million pound brands who have found a way to maximise profit at the expense of your self-esteem. Most creatives actually aren't on board with that at all. And so important for us to say to you, we don't think that that is a formula that, we're not endorsing that formula. And the reason why it's so, this space is so important, because you are the next generation of practitioners. In 5 years' time, you will be in the industry and you will be asked for an opinion. As the generation that the kind of older guard are trying to market to, something up. What do you think about this? I don't know. Is this landing in the right place for you? And if you're not in touch with your opinion and you're not comfortable to say, actually, I don't know what you're trying to say to me because it's not reaching me at all. In fact, I think it's quite demeaning. That picture of that woman you've got there with her legs wide open, why do you think that might be of interest to all your female consumers? Oh, nobody's ever said that before. It seems like at the moment who are in a room and everyone goes, are we up for this then? And everyone goes, yeah. And that's that. That's the creative debate. In 5 years' time, you can join that creative debate and go, no, I'm not up for that, actually. Where are we reflecting our consumers' needs in this? Where's the diversity? Where's the respect? In 10 years' time, you'll be leading a team and you'll be able to action your own agendas, which might not be you still working within a brand, but to be able to bring things up as a point that you want to discuss, at a point that you want to see some kind of flexibility or movement on, whatever that may be, is important. In 20 years' time, you will be managing directors, CEOs, and you will have been practicing your opinions for the last 20 years. From this moment onwards, having an opinion about something, about anything, is really important, because you are the people who will shape it, rather than feeding into what it is and agreeing to turn the volume down on your own opinion, agreeing to comply with what's already there. That is a waste of your creativity. Yes?
A question about creativity, actually. I was watching a documentary recently where Stephen Jones, in regard to Club to Catwalk, talked about the London designers of the 1980s pushing the boundaries of fashion at the time. Is this being done to the same extent in 2014? And are we in a situation where commercial success is now more important than creativity?
I think it's a really interesting space, because ultimately, you're not going to like this, creativity has been corporatized. But the corporate reaches in and starts dictating terms at a point in which you're still formulating your ideas. And you are in a position quite often where you're having to engage with a corporate, and I talked right at the beginning about the power of the individual having seemingly having shrunk in the corporate's eyes, and that's reflected in the way they showcase fashion on listless, young, waifish, vulnerable models who don't seem to have the same charisma, the same body strength, the same visual presence. The corporate seems to insist on a certain way of doing things, and in some ways, I go back to, and we, re-envisioning that space, that kind of post-punk space where it was raw, but people had an idea and they were so passionately connected to it that they didn't think about the polish and the production that needed to be around it in order for it to work. And that raw creativity is still what drives everything, what drives new ideas. The belief, the commitment, the passion, so that, and knowing what the value of your creativity, because these huge great big brands can't survive without it. So a typical example at Vauxhall Fashion Scout, when I was writing a piece for ID about the kind of inherent racism, a young designer came up to me and said, in order to get sponsorship for my show, I recognised there were subtle pressures for me not to cast any models who didn't have long European hair, because it was a hair care company who wanted to showcase their products. So what could I do? That's my sponsor. But had that young designer understood their own power, the power that their creativity afforded them, they could have recognised that that brand was literally leeching off them and was giving them a mere 20k, which I know sounds like a lot, but from a huge corporate it's not, to put on a show at Vauxhall Fashion Scout in which this company got global clearance on 30 different models who were in a kind of high fashion setting, beautifully lit on the runway, in top designer clothes, having had their makeup and hair done by a top stylist, all of whom were there for the designer, and had all of that as content to promote the brand and leverage their luxury position alongside fashion. If they'd have had to pay for that in commercial terms, it would have run into hundreds of thousands. But they went in through the back door to a young designer and said, we will give you this and we want all of this back. So belief in your creativity, which is the thing that the fashion industry needs and cannot survive on, is crucial. And so your own self-esteem, your own need not to be undermined, your own need to have your opinion valued, to be visible, to have a voice, can start here. You know, will be supported here, and you can begin practicing it here. So that when you get out into industry, I don't know how long that is for some of you, but you are ready to go and you can make the noise that you need to make to begin to shift things just a little bit in pursuit of better self-esteem for all. Anybody else, or have you had enough? Oh yes.
Just mentioning the point that you made about people almost accepting the fact that brands are doctored images like the beauty and that. With social media being more trusted services on social media, what responsibility do you think they've got to show images of themselves that haven't been modified on their personal accounts?
So with social media, you said what responsibility do they have? Who do you mean?
The celebrities, because obviously it's
right.
Almost consumers expect them to
Yeah.
have a sort of doctored image in
Yeah.
campaigns and in magazines. But because there's more element of trust on social media, they feel like it can be enhanced.
There are celebrities who have made a stand against post-production. I mean, Tilda Swinton, for one, is somebody who rarely appears with any makeup on at all, who does, you know, you often see those shots of her on the red carpet where they are as she is. There are celebrities who have, and I'm just thinking of the Jamie Lee Curtis did a big thing a few years back in which she wanted to talk about exactly that. But celebrities too are being encouraged to see themselves as brands and as money-making vehicles. And so on some levels, they have been sucked into maintaining the position of the brand, that's them, as always looking produced and glossy and ready for the next endorsement contract. So that's a tricky space. Interestingly, the celebrity, I think, is as shaky and as insecure as everyone else, and is constantly being evaluated on kind of exterior and appearance only, especially if she is female. And when we look at our media and the way in which women are showcased, and we see how few opportunities there are to see women looking everyday, looking ordinary. So guys get to see that all the time. Just go to the back of any newspaper and you get several pages of sweaty guys doing great things on the sports pitch, but there are no female equivalents. And when we look at the business section, guys get to see a variety of representations of masculinity in various shapes and sizes, being top CEOs, top businessmen, the movers and shakers. And on the front pages, we see the politicians. And women, unfortunately, have very limited role models because of the way the media is run. So we could actually put that question around diversity to a bigger kind of image-making vehicle than just fashion, because if the media was operated with a range of opinions, diverse opinions, which would allow for conversations around visibility around race, not just seeing people of colour in positions of hypersexualisation or criminalised in newspapers. If we saw women not just hypersexualised or as mothers or as distraught celebrities worried about their weight. You know, the diversity can go every which way in a way, rather than it becoming narrower and more formulaic. My excitement is that if we are conscious of the ability, of our ability as creatives to promote opinions, and we use width, then we offer up a kind of broader experience for everybody. And fashion can lead the way in that. Fashion has already situated itself in a kind of taste leadership position around the way to be and modernity. And so let's just fantasize for a while. What if there were just a few conscious people in fashion who were thinking about engaging with that agenda about diversity and supporting the self-esteem of consumers and of the next generation of consumers? What an incredible proposition that could be. And that's how powerful we are if we want to be. That was a really long answer, and I kind of just went over there and just kind of piled all my agendas in at that point, because I thought that's probably it now. I bet you're going to shut up. Thank you.